And welcome back to episode number 67 of Raise the Banner podcast. Boys, we're only two away from the great 6-9. We're getting close. We'll have to have a party for that episode. Anyways, your three hosts as usual. McAtoy here with Zach Brewitt and Benny Ballgame Dearth. Ben, you're confusing me with your name right now. It's always Benny Ballgame.
I have matured. I've grown up.
What are you doing? What are you doing? How was what do you do? Pitching lessons on Wednesday nights? Is that what it is?
Baseball in general. Could be anything.
Okay. All right. But how we doing? Big week. We finally got the Bregman signing, boys. How are we feeling?
Good.
Feeling good.
It's been 2 months since we started the. Hey, maybe next week they'll actually sign Bregman. That's
every
that's
episode we end like, all right, this time we talk next week, we'll have a Bregman signing, and it only took about 2 months for that to happen.
Finally,
that's where I want to start it off. Obviously, Bregman signed a 3-year, $120 million contract. How are we feeling about it? Are you excited? Do you like the move? Do you like the contract? What's your overall thoughts on the move?
I mean, it makes sense. They needed a right-handed bat. Didn't want to extend themselves for Bregman. They made that abundantly clear by not just offering him a 5 or 6 year deal from the onset, which is what he was looking for. It's certainly mutually beneficial to both parties. It's pretty team friendly with respect to they're only paying him $20 million a year for the next 3 years. But obviously it comes with a couple opt-outs. So if he has a career year, he basically plays here on a 1-year, $20 million deal, opts out of the contract, and then hits the market again next year, hoping for what'll probably likely be his last big contract that he'll get. And then, of course, it fills a need. Right-handed bat, I think he'll put a fair amount of dents in the Green Monster. So certainly good for the lineup. It certainly hasn't come with its fair share of drama over the last week or so, which I'm sure we'll touch on. It's an unfortunate byproduct of the situation. But the team is certainly better than it was a week ago, and especially at any point last year. Certainly, kind of a renewed sense of excitement. They went out and they got, a guy that hopefully is their ace in Garrett Crochet. Hopefully they pay him. They sign, Chapman, fine, guy, somewhere near the end of the game. Bullpen arm, strikeout numbers, velocity still there, but he's a little older. Walks are becoming an issue, so maybe not your top high leverage guy. And then of course they go get Bregman and Walker Buehler. So they checked the boxes for what they needed this offseason. So hard to complain about that. And let's just hope that they don't implode from within and basically undo the entire thing as we get going.
Yeah,
fair enough. Zach, how about you?
Yeah, no, I think to Ben's point, the Bregman signing checks really every box that we've talked about, that's been talked about, just in the media and Twitter, whatever. Right-handed bat, better fielder than we currently have right now. Veteran leader who's won before. Somebody you can play, whether it's second, third, as Ben touched upon, that might be more of a hot button issue than anyone really anticipated. But again, someone who could pull the ball into left field. And again, team-friendly deal. And what it did is they kind of shut everybody up and told them that I told you we were going to spend, and we finally did. It took a little bit longer than I think a lot of us wanted to, or a lot of us probably got to the point, myself included, where they thought that it was just more words. And they proved that it wasn't. It proved that they want to win now. They want to put themselves in a position to, like Sam Kennedy said, compete for the division, definitely the wild card spot, and also isn't locking them in for 6-7 years and creating a logjam, a bigger logjam than there already is in the infield with Christian Campbell coming up. You already have Vaughn Grissom there. You already have some other guys in the infield. So it really it shores up a lot of question marks that this roster had, while also leaving a lot of flexibility for the future with those young kids, again, and Christian Campbell and everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, most definitely. I think like this is kind of a win-win situation for the Red Sox. Obviously, we look at what they needed, and there was a lot of talk of like, hey, is Bregman like the right fit? And was he necessarily a perfect fit? No, but he fits into what they needed. They needed a right-handed bat, and then the contract wise, most likely, what would you guys say just percentage wise, the chance that he ends up opting out at the end of the year? Like,
I think it's
maybe
50. I think it's 50-50.
Yeah, I go 60-40. He opts in.
I wouldn't give it. I mean, he would have to have a monster season for him to opt out. I mean, you gotta remember, like, even if he has let's say he has a good year, not a phenomenal year, just a good year. Like, he would still need to be passing up 80 million over the next 2 years. So as much as he can get a long-term deal, like he needs to get, if he signed a 4-year, $100 million contract next offseason as a free agent, is that worth it? The answer is no. Like, you would take you'd play out the 2 years, 80 million, and bet on the fact that you could get more than 20 million in the 2 years after that combined. So I don't really view it as likely that he opts out. But in the scenario that he does, it fits in why I say it's a win-win for the Sox. It's either he, there's obviously the scenario that he sucks, but that's very unlikely. It's more likely he plays solid baseball for them for the next 2 or 3 years, or he balls out this year, helps the team win this year, and then he walks in it, and we have the replacements kind of already ready to go. So it's not going to be like desperation if he leaves after this season. They have a young plethora of talent ready to replace him in the scenario. And if that young talent is ready early this year, they make it work. How are you guys feeling positional wise? Do you feel, I know I asked you off the record, where do you see him playing this year? At least the majority. Do you see it split? Do you see him primarily at one spot? How do you guys view it?
Zach, you can take this one, and then I'll chime in with the conversations we've had.
Yeah, no, I've gone back and forth because originally I was like, okay, cool, he's your everyday second baseman. But then obviously with the Devers comments and everything else, it kind of opened the door more for third base. So I've gone back and forth between whether I think he's going to be more of a everyday second baseman and kind of a platoon, I guess is the wrong way to say that, but let's split time at a second and third. What I would probably rather have is him spend time at second, right? Take a little bit of the pressure off guys like Vaughn Grissom to perform well, guys like Christian Campbell if he ends up making the opening day roster, and just he's your kind of centerpiece there at second base. And then I'm not necessarily a big fan of pissing off whether Devers wants to be named your the face of the franchise or not. I'm not a huge fan of pissing him off, whoever that may be. So I would rather have him be at third base and Devers, or excuse me, Bregman be at second base, even though I think Bregman is far and away the better fielder. He'll probably have a better infield. Now, that being said, I think Cora has a good handle on it. I think he'll have a way to communicate that with Devers to make it seem like, I know you want to be the everyday third baseman. This is what's best for the team. We're going to make it work out where you're still considered the third baseman. You're not going to come off that, and you're not going to be labeled a DH or whatever. But we're going to give Bregman some looks here at third. So I do think it's going to be more of a split than I think I anticipated, but I don't think it's going to be like everyday third baseman for Bregman, everyday DH for Devers.
Fair enough, Ben.
So I kind of went back and forth after we talked about this. I mean, you messaged me a few hours ago. Because I think about two components to this. So Devers is adamant that he will not DH. They asked him in a press conference, what was it, 2 days ago, and flat out they're like, will you play DH? And he just said no. Then a little bit later on in the interview, he basically alluded to, that he wants to play third, but that it's not ultimately up to him, that it's not his final decision. So I'm not entirely sure if that was just him being amenable to a situation or if he honestly will just do what he's told. It's probably some combination of both. There were other interviews. Obviously Costas spoke his mind, but I think more about like Cora basically saying that the prior regime is not here, speaking specifically to the assurances that the Chaim Bloom administration gave Devers when they signed him to the contract, that they weren't just going to sign him and then boot him off of third base. They kind of assured him that he was going to be there. I don't know what exactly they said. This is his third year of the extension, if I'm not mistaken. So, they obviously told him at least in the short term, he was not just going to be booted off of third base. And then they asked Cora about that, and he was like, well, that guy works in St. Louis now. So, Cora's of the opinion that it's, who really cares what the prior administration promised him? This is, it's a new direction, new, what is Breslow's title? Chief Baseball Officer, President, whatever his job title is, GM, President Operations, whatever you want to call it. That, new direction, it's up to him at the end of the day. So if Breslow, tells Cora and says, hey, the lineup card's yours, we're not making any promises to anybody. We want to put the best team on the field as possible from an offensive, defensive, and pitching standpoint. I think we can all agree. You'd be really hard-pressed to find anybody outside of maybe Tristan Casas who thinks that Rafael Devers is anything but a liability. For those who don't know, he said that he wouldn't pick anybody else to play third base in baseball. He thinks that Rafael Devers is the best.
Because he doesn't want Devers coming to first base
in all of baseball, which we all know is not correct. We don't have to dive down the rabbit hole, but if you look at advanced metrics since 2017, which was Rafael Devers' rookie season, I believe, he ranks 81st out of 82 qualifying third baseman.
Hey man, if you're not last, you're first, right? That's the motto.
No. Bobby Ricky over here. Backwards Ricky Bobby over here. And I don't know where the rank is, but since he came up in to the roster, he is a negative 65 defensive run saved at third base, which is not good. Anything below 0 is not good, and he's leaving 0 behind in the wrong way. So, if Breslow tells Cora that the lineup is his, I would expect Devers to DH more than he plays third. It'll probably be some kind of a split. I don't know how they're going to play it. There's definitely some infighting. I kind of expect Devers to be the opening day third baseman. Beyond that, I really don't know. I don't know why he wants to play third base. He isn't being paid to make defensive plays. He's paid to hit the ball over the wall. I almost said Green Monster, but I don't know how often he's going oppo these days. They're not paying him $31 and a third $1 million a year. To be Nolan Arenado. They're doing it to hit balls over the wall. So, I would expect a split. They'll find some kind of common ground. But I would expect Devers to be the opening day third baseman, just because I think that Bregman has said that he'll play anywhere. He really doesn't care, which is the answer that every player should say, is that they're willing to do what's best for the team. But we'll see. But yeah, I would expect Devers to open up at third base. How long he stays there, how many games he gets, I don't know. Me personally, I don't think he should play more than 30 games at third base, given the makeup of the current roster. They didn't have a Bregman. I'd say, whatever, you don't have another option. But that's, kind of where I stand on that.
Yeah, for me, looking at this big picture and everyone involved, I'm not very happy with it all. I won't get into how they should have handled it ahead of time with Devers, but I kind of feel like Cora's been talking out of both sides of his mouth since he got to spring training. He made the comment of Devers is our third baseman, and then he makes the comment, well, Chaim is the one that told him that when he signed the contract, insinuating that's not the situation anymore. So for a coach or a manager that's supposed to be the player's coach and all that, I'm a big Cora fan. I don't think he's handled it tremendously well. Tristan Casas comes out and speaks and listen, I'm I'm not a guy that's banging on the door to trade Costas. That being said, I would for the right price. But like he needs to learn to shut up. I mean, like that's like the nice way to kind of put it, I guess. Like I get it. That's who he is. And for the most part, I'm kind of fine with it. But like he could have easily just said, like, that's not my decision. That's, the manager's decision. So it's not really something that, I can even address. Instead, he came out and, I get it. Like, he gave his real opinion and so be it. But he had to know that was going to create even more headlines and more negativity towards himself and the whole situation.
Yeah, Corey even said it too.
Yeah, and then obviously Devers himself. Like, I've been big into my whole life, and I think a lot of people are, is like, as a player, as a teammate, you do whatever it takes to win. And part of that in this situation is Devers saying, I know that I am not a great defensive third baseman. I know that I am paid to hit the ball out of the ballpark. So, it's frustrating as a fan where, I really like Rafi Devers. I think he's, a relatively, he's a funny person. He's a goofy guy, like, Rafi Big Scoops. I love the player. I love having him. But, it seems like he's being pretty selfish right now. If that's how he wants to approach it. So, we heard talk about during, Heim's era of like him being frustrated that they didn't add pieces at the deadline and they weren't, committed to winning. And then they add a really good baseball player. And it just so happens that guy plays third base too. And he's all of a sudden, nope, I'm the third baseman. I'm not moving, all that. Like, if you were really all about winning, you would be sacrificing and doing what you feel is best for the team to win. And Bregman came out and said that basically straight up. He goes, I'll play wherever they want me to play and whatever helps us win. And so, I'm just frustrated with Devers, his comment. Nevertheless, I think that I'm leaning that Bregman will be the primary third baseman this year. And by primary, I think he'll play 50 to 60% of the games there. I think that Devers will still get plenty of time there. And obviously injuries could like change this in a second. Like, opening day could come and Bregman breaks his ankles and is out for 3 months. And all of a sudden this is a useless conversation. But I think Bregman will be the opening day third baseman. I think that Devers will basically come out and say, like, I had a good talk with Alex Cora, and what we feel is best for the team is I'm going to DH a good amount this year. And nevertheless, like I'll hand it off to you guys on this end of it, is that even if Devers is the starting third baseman to start the year, what happens when Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, or Marcelo Mayer is ready to go? Like, if Christian Campbell, let's say they all start in AAA, if Christian Campbell lights up the first month in AAA and is like, it gets to the point where you're like, what are we doing? He needs to be in the majors. You're going to have to give him, it doesn't make sense to have him come up and play like once every 5 days as like just a pure bench player. You're not going to give him full-time reps, but you have to give him legit reps. So when one of these guys are ready, you're going to have to sit there and say, like, okay, Campbell's a second baseman and an outfielder. So what does that say? It says either A, Yoshida is going to get the shit end of the stick, meaning Devers is a full-time DH, or B, Rafael is going to get the shit end of the stick, or I guess in theory, maybe Abreu. Those are the three that you look at and say, like, those are the only options for these young guys to take the spots, right? Is there anyone else that's really in danger of losing playing time from these young guys?
No. Specific to the third base situation, the third base situation to me doesn't really hinge on anybody other than Campbell and Bregman and Devers, like those three guys, right? Like if Devers is proving to be serviceable defensively, even if it's in a, like a, what do I want to say? Like a committee role with Bregman, where, it's whether it's every other day, some semblance of a split with Bregman and Devers. If Devers is proven to be serviceable defensively, then you're kind of in a tougher spot, because we know that Devers is going to hit, right? So, and even if Devers goes into a little bit of a slump, you're not going to sit Devers in favor of Campbell. Like you're not going to do that. So, to me, if Devers continues to struggle at third, and not saying that the odds of that are not good, but if he continues to be a defensive liability, I think it makes things easier on the organization if Campbell is raking at AAA and they say that he's taking enough reps at second base, or he's exclusively at second base because that's the easiest transition at the big league club. Then the conversation goes, okay, like Campbell's ready to come up. We want to give him a shot at second base. So at least in the short term, it's going to be, Devers and Bregman can still split between DH and third, but that Campbell is going to be the second baseman. And then you kind of go from there. You can't really give assurances to Campbell in any case, even if he's raking. You call him up, you see what he does, and then you either make a decision. Is he making the right steps that he can be an everyday fixture on the roster? Sure.
Yeah. The big thing I noticed so far with Campbell is, well, first of all, they're very high on him, like internally, but Red Sox fans seem to have this notion, and I really just don't understand it, that if Campbell is ready, that he's going to be a full-time player, like right away. And my question to that is, where? Like, where is he going to play? Like, unless they trade Yoshida or and maybe even like another player, where is he going to get full-time at bats right out of the chute?
I mean, the easy answer is second base.
Yeah.
You would need to you would basically need to make Yoshida a full-time bench player and Devers a full-time DH. Like that's your only path to it. And never mind, like, if Yoshida's hitting well, or if Mayer's also ready, or if Anthony's also ready, and then all of a sudden, like, Anthony's ready, and now you got to shift Anthony into left and put Duran in center, and then all of a sudden, where does Rafaela go? And so I just struggle to see when, where he's going to get full-time playing time early in the season. If he plays well, and he comes in and he's playing 50-60% of games, and he's killing the ball and he's dominating, he looks great. Yeah, all right, he's earned that spot, and then like you have to make a tough decision where you say, like, we're just playing the best available players. But like, to expect him to come out of the gate and get day one full-time at bats, I just seem that it's just incredibly unrealistic in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I would give it like a 3% chance he makes the big league club for that reason. Because unless he is otherworldly and you have a massive drop in Devers' defensive ability, because the only way that you're going to get him regular reps consistently is he plays second, and Bregman and Devers DH and play third. That's the other option. That's really
the other option. Obviously, if an injury happens, it's thing. But the other option could be, in theory, Rafaela sucks in spring training, and they decide that Duran's best in center and Campbell plays left, which I don't see as very likely, speaking to the fact that he seems to be at second for the most part so far.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's certainly a viable option, but I think the easiest answer is Campbell at second, Bregman at third, Devers DH, and then you just rotate through Bregman, and you rotate Bregman and Devers at third, and then if you want to give Campbell a day off defensively, Bregman goes to second, Campbell DHs, and Devers is at third. Like, there's enough flexibility there that you can definitely do it. And maybe that's the best case scenario. If Campbell just comes out on fire in spring training, I think that's the easiest rotation, is those three guys split time between DH, third, and second. Yoshida to me is not enough of a dynamic hitter that you have to worry about what do you do with him if Campbell makes the roster and you have to rotate guys in and out of DH. Because if Campbell doesn't make the roster, then the easiest thing is Yoshida's your DH, Devers is at third, Bregman's at second, and that's just what you do.
I mean, that's why I still kind of lean these young guys not making the roster to start the season.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I mean, like, it's just a matter of, like, they have these vets kind of ready to go. And like I said, like, we could be talking 3 weeks from now and, like, someone is expected to already be out for the first month of the season. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Rafaela, has a grade 3 hamstring injury. And then, like, he's going to be out for the first 6 weeks of the season. And all of a sudden, like, none of this conversation matters because they just moved Duran over and now they need, it fills in. You got whether it's Yoshida in left or Campbell in left or, Ref Snyder gets more at bats, whatever it may be. But as things currently stand, like, I think it'll be tough for really any of the three of the top 3 prospects there to crack the opening day roster just simply because, like, there's just a ton of options. That's why I say I think they need to clear house in terms of getting rid of 1 or 2 of these depth guys. Because we're talking about all these names. We don't even include, like, Romy Gonzalez or David Hamilton. Both of them are going to be fighting for roster spots.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect David Hamilton to make the roster just because of his speed and the fact that he can, I mean, aside from first, he can really play anywhere in the infield. I mean, he's more of a middle infielder, but I suppose
but even then, like,
third.
They could, in theory, like, have Grissom in theory could play short if really need be. Bregman could play short if really need be.
Gross.
You know what I mean? So it's like, in theory, Campbell could play short if need be. It's not like Hamilton. Rafaela can play short if need be. It's not like Hamilton's like Hamilton's versatility like isn't anything that's at least now comparatively to previous years. Now it really doesn't mean too much because they have a lot of guys that seem to be able to move around the diamond.
Right. Yeah, he was a depth piece last year, and now we have way more depth. He's almost, I don't want to say phased out, but he's almost kind of at the end of his spot here.
And that's why I mentioned the idea of just kind of, ask around. I mocked something, I think it was the Cubs. They don't really have like a direct, easy fill at second base right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, all right, like, send him to the Cubs and he can maybe be their second baseman, or send him to the Mariners. The mock I did for Cease, and it was, they have I think it's Dylan Moore at second. He batted like 208 last year. Like, he's a right-handed hitter. You could at least bring Hamilton in to potentially complement him, type of thing. So I think that they're still going to make a move or two, and they should, because they have too many bodies right now that are realistically major league worthy bodies.
And they all feel like they're all at really 2 positions, outfield and second base. So yeah, I think there needs to be a move. And I think, like you guys have been talking about, I think what makes the most sense is the kids stay in the minors to start the season. Bregman plays second, Devers plays third, and then Yoshida, for example, plays DH, and then God forbid someone gets hurt or injured or can't, Devers is just that bad at third base. You move Bregman over, kind of make a move from there. But
you figure it out as the spring goes, because, like, there's a chance that Campbell lights up spring training. Like, there's a chance where he makes it so, like, you really don't have a choice but to have him on the major league roster. Like, that's entirely possible. I do want to shift to do you have final thoughts, Ben, on that?
Well, I was gonna say another factor in all of this is if the Red Sox don't have these young kids on the major league roster and they wait, and I forget what the number of days is. It changes every year because it's based on when the season starts. It's usually sometime in mid-April. If they wait, then the major league service clock only applies if you play more than X number of games in a season. So would I rule out them calling up Campbell at like the end of April or early May? If he rakes in spring training and it carries over into AAA, in the early part of the year, I wouldn't rule out a call up at some point. in the short term. But I think that, where there's already a logjam, you can't necessarily like you can't send some of these guys down to the minors like they're out of options.
Yeah.
So I think that
there doesn't seem to be a direct need for them right now. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a blatant, glaring hole on the roster that one of these young guys are filling.
Yeah. So if I was going to speculate, I would say the way that, and Campbell's obviously, I know we're hammering on him. There's no easy path for Roman Anthony or Marcelo Mayer to make the roster. It's a lot easier for Campbell. Well, I shouldn't say it's a lot easier. It's easier for Campbell to make this team than it is for the other two guys. I just think that, barring an injury and Campbell being an absolute terror with the bat in spring training, I don't see how any of those three guys make the roster because of the logjam, because of, those guys still have options to be called up and sent back down, whereas certain guys don't. I would imagine somebody like, David Hamilton probably doesn't have a ton of options, if any, to be sent back down to the minors. They'd have to go through a different process with that. And maybe they do, I don't know. I just, given that there's plenty of flexibility with call-ups and send-downs with the big three guys, I would assume that unless somebody gets hurt and Campbell is just absolutely on a tear, I'd be genuinely surprised if he made the opening day roster.
Yeah, fair enough. Transitioning into the rotation, and Ryan Hall asked the question of thoughts on Cutter's injury. There's talk, obviously, of a 6-man rotation. So, right now we have, Crochet, Bayo, Houck, Giolito, and Bueller. That's the main 5 that seems to be kind of locked in. If they go 6, Cutter seems to be the most likely option. But what are your thoughts on his injury and what it could mean for potentially opening the door for a guy like, Richard Fitz, Quinn Priester, guys like that?
I missed him. What was his injury?
Yeah, I didn't know he was hurt.
He's got like this nagging knee injury, apparently, that he's being shut down for like a week or two. So I guess I think it started last year and it's back. I don't know. But seemingly, like if he's going to miss time, it opens the door for Priester and Fitz. And I'm missing one guy off the top of my head, I feel, that is also in the mix. Is there another option? Why am I I know there's another option.
Not Weissert, right?
No.
So current guys on the depth chart.
Why am I having a mind blank?
Winkowski, Whitlock, Brian Mata.
No, not him.
What's really weird is Priester isn't even on the Red Sox depth chart as a pitcher.
That's odd. But yeah, no, I mean, his injury, it's worrisome. If you're Cutter Crawford, you're panicking, because if this puts you behind the 8 ball and it leaves the window open to either A, force Cora and them to just go with the 5-man and you're left out, or B, opens the door for Priester and Fitz, who they're the type of guys I feel like the Red Sox are just looking for the reason to replace Cutter Crawford, right? Because we know what Cutter Crawford is. And I like Crawford. He battles, like he's the ideal 5-6 man type of guy. But like if Fitz is pitching well or Priest is pitching well, they have a lot of incentive to go with the young guy to see if they can be something more than that. Oh yeah, Ryan brings up it's Cooper Criswell is the Criswell is the other option. Okay. He's not an exciting name, but the fact is he pitched relatively decent last year. So he's also going to be in the mix to earn innings for them. So do you think they go 6-man, Ben?
No. I really don't. I would expect them to go. I mean, unless there's an injury to one of the main 5 guys in the rotation, and they have to utilize a couple of guys, and maybe they figure out and they have to go with a 6-man rotation because they don't really have a fifth guy, so they go with a sixth. And again, spitballing. I don't expect them to go with a 6-man rotation. I would expect some semblance of you'll have Crochet as your opening day starter, then you'll go with I would assume Hauk, and then Bayo, Giolito, Bueller. Like, I'm not entirely sure, but I realized that Bueller's coming off of an injury. You have Crawford, who I looked it up. I guess he's been having a patellar tendon issue, and he struggled with that after his third start last season. It was a nagging injury he had all last year. So what I could see, not necessarily a 6-man rotation, but I could see them carrying another multi-inning guy, so that if the guys at the back end of your rotation aren't fully stretched out, or you're trying to get them, not necessarily on an innings limit, but you're limiting their innings early in the season so that they're fresher when it comes time to, for August and September and early part of October to roll around. I could see them carrying an extra, medium to long inning relief guy. Garrett Whitlock's going to be your multi-inning reliever. I could see them carrying a Cooper Criswell or a Cutter Crawford, assuming he's healthy, where they otherwise might not, because you probably don't want Bueller going out there throwing 7 innings in the first week in April, coming off of a season where he's had Tommy John surgery. So,
No, yeah.
Again,
long relief, they got plenty of options too. They got Josh Winkowski, who is we know has gone back and forth, but he's a guy that can go 2 or 3 innings. They have guys like Chris Murphy, who we'll see what he can be, and then obviously they got Fitz and Priest and Criswell that could all be like long relievers for them.
Yeah, not entirely sure who's going to make the roster. You would expect. As far as your bullpen guys, just running down the list again, no semblance of order. You figure Slayton, Chapman, Whitlock. Those are guys that are probably, definitely there. Bernardino's probably there as your lefty specialist. Murphy can be a lefty specialist, but it's probably Bernardino if I had to guess. Because Chapman will be.
They have Wilson too.
Chapman will be a guy that goes. He's obviously he's not going to be a true high leverage guy on a consistent basis, but he can still dial it up at 100 plus, so he's a decent lefty guy. But then you've got Liam Hendricks, who, assuming he's healthy, is going to be in the rotation. Adam Ottavino just signed a minor league deal. We'll see. He's on
Luis Guerrero.
He's on, you've got him. Patrick Sandoval's going to start the year on probably the 60-day DL. You probably won't see him. I would say it's safe to say you probably see him the second half of the season, but he's one of those, like, he's a long, he's an innings eater. He's a, guy that can start in a situation, could be a Garrett Whitlock type multi-inning reliever. So there's certainly spots in that bullpen for certain guys. But, and there's some spots to be won. Like I said, you have Hendricks and Slayton. I don't think they have a defined closer at this point. Slayton certainly has the upside to do it. He's got some nasty off-speed stuff. Hendricks and Chapman have certainly done it in the past. But we'll have to see what what it looks like. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily think you're looking at a 6-man rotation unless something really weird happens. But I think that you could see, one of these multi-inning guys be kept on at least early in the season, given the current status of the rotation, where, if you didn't have a couple of guys coming off an injury, forgot to even mention the fact that Giolito's coming off a Tommy John too. So you've got guys at the bottom of your rotation who you're going to want to limit their innings and ease them in. But,
Yeah, they have a ton of options in the bullpen. I would have ideally liked to see them land another top, more reliable arm, but just as it plays out, and I don't know what the service that each of these guys have, but when we talk about trying to fill out this bullpen, like I said, you have Winkowski, you have Wilson, you have Weiser, you have Zach Penrod, Chris Murphy, Zach Kelly, Luis Guerrero, Bernardino, Chat. Like you have basically like 5 to 6 relievers that's probably only spots for like 2, maybe 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then the other ones are going to be down in the minor in AAA, kind of being ready to go. So as much as they don't have that, like a David Robertson that I want them to sign, where it's a more reliable option, they have that ability to at least play whoever is pitching the best at the moment. If Kelly's pitching really well, pitch him, get him up here, let him go. And if he starts to struggle, get him back down and bring up someone that, is pitching more consistently at the moment. I know Greg Weiser has supposedly dropped about 20 to 25 pounds, which is interesting. He was certainly a thick fella. It might be the best description for him last year. But he's
his listed stats 6'2", 235.
He's not too bad. All right, yeah, that's not too crazy for 6'2" at all.
No, it's basically it's Rafael Devers' build on a 2-inch taller frame.
Yeah, so it's seemingly like we'll see. I don't know if this is up to date. I don't know, but if he had lost 20 pounds from that and he's in the 210 to 215 range, yeah, we'll see. Who do you guys think is going to be the closer? Like, who ends up? Ben Durth?
Yes.
All right. We better score a lot of runs.
With my mid-70s poo fastball.
If he's healthy enough, I guess.
Ben, what was your cap as a high school pitcher?
So it's funny, being the elder statesman, the AARP member of the group, they didn't have radar guns back when I played. But supposedly, we can go down this rabbit hole another day if you really want to. I decided I went to an open major league tryout when I was 19. And supposedly I was sitting like 78 to 80, but I don't know if that.
Look at you.
That was, again, nothing special.
I capped out at I think 77.
All right,
I couldn't get it.
I believe you don't skip arm day.
No, well, I mean maybe a little in high school, but and that was like really trying to juice it up there. I probably sat normally like 74, 75. I just had the only reason I survived any bit in high school was I had a pretty good curveball. That got me by a little bit. I'm not exactly the most intimidating guy on the mound, standing at like 5'9" and 5'9", like 175 pounds. Like, here comes this kid. Like, he's not going to be blowing you away with.
Hey, Pedro was 5'11", 175. So don't sell yourself short.
Listen, I'm not Pedro.
That's true. He
a little different there.
A little bit of a darker skin tone. Gun to my head, probably Hendricks. But it all depends. Just because he's done it before, and I think from what I've seen, I've seen some bullpen videos of him during spring training. He looks healthy. I know he's not coming off of an injury issue. If I'm not mistaken, he didn't he have leukemia or cancer or something? He was like sick. He had like an actual health issue. So assuming that he's got his endurance and he's healthy, I would assume it's him just because he has the history. If I'm going pure upside, I kind of want to see Justin Slayton. He's got really good fastball. Sweeper, slider, I don't know what he calls it. Is really, really good. He didn't get a ton of opportunities last year. He didn't even get a ton of holds. But I upside wise, I would say I lean Slayton, but I would expect it to be Hendricks just because of the history.
Yeah, I think they set it up a little bit to be Hendricks last year when they brought him in. Basically, sat him for the full year. I don't think he pitched at all last year. If he did, it was sparingly in the end. But then Kenley is gone. They pretty much all but set it up for Hendricks, or like for it to be Hendricks' job to lose. But I agree. But I think if it's not him or for some reason he can't go, I think Slayton is probably the next most obvious choice just because of upside. Saw it a little bit last year with his stuff. I think Chapman's just over the hill, can't do it anymore. I don't really know who else would be in it. I know Whitlock.
Whitlock is my dream.
And
so the problem with Whitlock is we need to see him A, stay healthy, and B, get back into I'm a reliever, I'm a 1 or 2 inning guy type of pitcher. Because we saw what he was the first year here. He was down
great.
Like,
he was great.
So if he can get back to that, if he can get back to that, he should be their closer. Yeah. Assuming again, if Hendricks starts out as a closer and he's pitching well, obviously you don't try to fix what's not broken, but Hendricks' fastball seems to be down a little bit from pre-injury and sickness, but we'll see how it plays out. Fortunately, they have 3 or 4 solid options.
Yeah, we just
it seems like they're just going to be whoever ends up the best.
I'd be surprised if Whitlock got it though, just because he hasn't done it in a while, and he kind of, like I mentioned before, they kind of Daniel Barded him a little bit, making him a starter.
Yeah, I don't expect Whitlock to be the starter early on. He would have to be. It would have to be something that Hendricks is maybe struggling a little bit, and it's mid-May, and Whitlock is pitching lights out, and they make the switch or something.
No, I agree.
But I think it's rather unlikely that Whitlock gets the opening day closer title or whatever.
He was good though in 2021, was it?
Yeah, so I brought up his numbers. So 2021 was his first year, well, at the big league level. If I'm not mistaken, he was in the Yankees system, and we got him in the Rule 5 draft. So thanks, Brian Cashman, for not protecting him. But in 46 games, and he finished 11 of them. I don't know what exactly that means. Probably just games he got the last out, but maybe not a save situation. He did get 2 saves, but in 46 games, he had a 2.8 WAR, which feels pretty high for a reliever. 8-4 record, whatever. But he had a 1.96 ERA in 73 1/3 innings. He gave up 64 hits, 17 walks, 81 strikeouts. His FIP was 284, which would indicate that he probably got a little bit lucky, considering that's almost a full run higher than his actual ERA. And his whip was 1.1. That's always been kind of good for him. It was 1.02 in 2022. It ballooned up in 2023 because that was the year that he tried to become a starter. He started 10 games and pitched in 22 total. And his ERA was 5 and his whip was 1.3. So that was an issue 2 years ago. But as a reliever, he's been insanely good. Last year, again, he got hurt last year, but in 4 games, he had, he was a starter in 2024, but was very, very good in 2024. That to me feels more like they just didn't have anybody else. I would say too, though, that while he hasn't been the elite player he once was, it wouldn't surprise me if Aroldis Chapman got opportunities to save games. Like I said, the walks have been an issue. Let's see, I'm just bringing up his numbers. They've kind of always been an issue, but definitely more so lately. His walks per 9 starting in 2021, 6.1. 6.9 in 2022, 5.6 in 2023. And that was walks per 9 was over 6 in 31 games with the Royals, and then it was 5 with 30 games with Texas. And then last year with Pittsburgh, it was 5.7 walks per 9 innings. having said that, the Ks per 9 are still there. He's never had a season where his Ks per 9 have been in the single digits. And last year he was at 14.3 strikeouts per 9. So the strikeout numbers are still there. But I agree. He's 30. I don't know when he turns 37, but he'll be 37 at some point. So his best years are behind him. But I still think that given he's got elite fastball velo, I still think he can be effective. But an ERA in the high threes, which is atypical. And when you're walking, you figure if his walk rate is 6 per 9, that means he's walking what, 2/3 of a hitter every inning, right? No, 3/4 of a hitter every inning. No, 2/3, 6.
Oh yeah, no, I was doing it.
Yeah. So he's averaging 2/3 of a walk every inning. So again,
basically, he's gonna walk someone like every other game at least.
Yeah, he'll walk someone every 4 to 5 outs.
Yeah, which as a closer, I don't want that. Like, I think the goal I think for them is Liam Hendricks, but I don't really want a guy that walks a lot in the closer position. I think Chapman, for as much as I hate the dude, his best.
Oh, come on, he's like a solid C- person.
All right, we're not gonna go there. I think the best role for Chapman is like that 6th inning guy, like that guy 6th or 7th inning guy. I think that Slayton's a better option. I think Whitlock will hopefully be a better option.
See, I think Whitlock's going to be their multi-inning guy. I don't think you're going to see Whitlock in the 7th, 8th inning.
I think for the most part they'll just there won't be a ton of consistency where they use Whitlock. They'll just kind of use him when needed and when he's available.
Yeah, and he'll be the first guy if somebody like a Brian Bayo comes out in the 3rd or the 4th inning because he's thrown too many pitches. Assuming he's not burnt out, Whitlock will be the first guy they go to. That they got to get to the 7th or 8th inning and hopefully stay in a game, because immediate like stoppability to like stop the bleeding. Like Whitlock's the guy I'm giving the ball to.
Yeah. Oh, sir. Like he said. When he first came here, he was flat out dominant. So if he can get back to even 90%, 80% of that, he'll be a really good pitcher in this league. And if he can happen to get back to what he was, he will be that other reliever that we really need. Because right now, the one downside of this bullpen is they don't have a stud, at least yet. They don't have like that stud, whether it's a setup man or a stud closer that's like, you feel 100% confident going to, and you have full trust in.
That's true.
Like Chris Martin was, for the last couple of years. Like, they went to Chris Martin. Was it 2 years ago? And he had like a 1.2 ERA. Like, he was just flat. Yeah. Basically, if the Sox had the lead going into the 8th, the Sox were going to have the lead going into the 9th. Like that it got to that point when Chris Martin was coming in. Mm-hmm. But as a whole, any final thoughts on the Red Sox and the rotation and anything altogether?
I think that there's some definite upside. I feel like, the rotation is obviously improved based on last year alone. I'm kind of excited to see what they can do. I saw Garrett Crochet throwing to Trevor Story in live batting practice, and Trevor Story literally couldn't touch him. And not that Trevor Story is this.
Oh, supposedly Story took him deep once.
The video that I saw, he was throwing like 98, 99, and Trevor.
Yeah, he did. He did strike out Story, I believe, once, but then somehow no one got a video of it, but multiple people posted about it that he took Crochet deep. But all right, we could do 10 minutes of it before we kind of quickly end with the Patriots. the Boston Bruins. Wow, we're talking Boston Bruins. This is a new world. The Four Nations final is tomorrow night. Charlie McAvoy has gotten injured.
That's not correct.
What?
He's sick.
Yeah. No, he's injured.
No, he has an illness. It came out
No,
yesterday. He's out with an illness.
He has an infection in his shoulder. They posted about it. He has an AC joint sprain and there's an infection in his shoulder because of it.
Oh.
And so he's probably out. Yeah, yes, the other day they said illness, but no, it's an infection in his shoulder. Supposedly the Bruins are not happy with how his injury was like the response to it from the staff with Team USA. But quickly, what are your overall thoughts on that? And then the big question is, if he's going to be out, the team's already floundering a bit. Do you trade the captain, Brad Marchand?
I would, but the McAvoy thing is just one more are you kidding me moment for this entire season. Like nothing has worked out.
The Red Sox the last few years.
Yeah, seriously. But their two signings in Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm really haven't done anything. Been pretty bad. And then the team as a whole has been awful. And then obviously now McAvoy, just being out. They have a timeline listed as when he's out, or just infection and whatever.
They don't know yet. It seems like he'll be out at least a couple weeks.
Okay. So yeah.
But yeah, the infection I heard was really bad. Like he's still in the hospital.
Yeah. No, I heard that's from
the injury itself.
So yeah, I think it's just again one more just kind of freak, one of those freak injuries that just kind of adds more to the poor season we're having. But to get to your point about Brad Marchand, I mean, I have come on here before and said they should probably move on from him. I'm not a Brad Marchand stan the way a lot of Bruins fans are. And
I give them credit. Bruins fans are so loyal to their greats.
They are. I fight with my friends all the time about Brad Marchand.
They're so loyal.
I'm just like, I can go down a rabbit hole with that one, but I think if there's going to be a chance or a time to trade him, it has to be during a time that you're not doing well, and you're playing like shit. The team's doing terrible. They're out of a playoff spot, I'm pretty sure. And think about a one for. Yeah, exactly. They're out of a playoff spot, so just trade him away, see what you can get for him. I mean, I think you're probably going to get more for him now than you would at maybe at the I guess you can't because his contract's up. So trade him to a contender and just get what you can for him because you got to rebuild this thing. Can't keep running it back with the same players. You can't keep running it back with older talent. At some point, you have to get younger and rebuild. And I know they want to say retool or reload, whatever. They don't want to go a full rebuild, but now is the time to trade Brad Marchand. Now is the time to offload a lot of the talent and loaded contracts you have because you got to get more depth, more secondary scoring. You have to just rebuild your roster, rebuild your team.
Yeah, well, so part of the issue for me is, are they where does ownership stand on Cam Neely and Sweeney? Are they coming back? And if they're not coming back, do you want them making these decisions? Who? No. I never mind. I would say that trading Brad Marchand has to be something that is signed off by ownership.
Yeah.
But that decision has to be made. But I mean, in terms of Marchand himself and the team itself right now, it's time to accept that this team isn't there. They don't have enough secondary scoring. These free agents that Sweeney signed aren't working out. I was a Sweeney defender for the most part for a few years, but he's just not been good enough the last couple of years.
You can go through a laundry list of free agents that just have not worked out. And it's at what point?
Never mind that. I mean, the draft picks. The reason this team doesn't have the secondary scoring is specifically because of their poor drafting.
Yeah.
So, whether he's going to be back or not is I guess, a secondary conversation. But this team needs to face the fact that they're not going anywhere this year. And, for as much as I love Brad Marchand, like he's been here for his whole career, you have to look at yourself in the mirror as a team and say, like, let's get the value back while we still can.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's entirely possible. Like, you could trade him right now, get a second round pick perhaps, and then in the offseason he could resign. Like,
yeah.
Is that likely? I don't know. But, like, in theory, he could. Go send him to a contender, get a second round pick, and then if he really wants to return and you want him back, like, you could always bring him back on a 2-year, $4 million deal or something like that. Either way, it would have to be short money. Ben, where are you on all this?
So I'm torn. To me, and I think we talked about this in the offseason. Marchand's not like your typical captain.
No, he's not exactly a like clear-cut leader.
Yeah.
Of men.
So I'm torn. Obviously, he's been a staple on this team for a long time. But I think that you have to be open to it, and here's why. So the deadline is in 2 weeks? It's March 7th. So whatever that is. So you figure you've got 2 weeks to decide if you are going to be making a push or not. So as it stands right now, they are the second team out of the playoffs. They are tied with Columbus at 60 points, but Columbus has a game in hand. The Bruins sit at 57 games. The Lightning, Leafs, both at 55, are 6 and 8 points respectively ahead of them. So I realize it's the All-Star break. I'd have to look at the schedule. I'm not 100% sure when they come back. I don't know if it's this weekend or what. But the next 2 weeks you kind of have to see where you're at, leading up to the trade deadline. There's a lot of jostling. It's not like they're in a brutal position. I would say, if there's one major red flag, it's that their goal differential is a -25, which as it stands right now is 4th worst in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Well, the tough part is they could, in theory, back their way into the playoffs in one of these final spots.
Correct.
Like, the window's still there, but it's looking yourself in the mirror.
But if you think about it, right? Let's just say that they sneak into the playoffs as like the first or second wild card team. That means that you're playing either Florida or Washington in their building. Not a good matchup for them. So you have to look at the reality of the situation. It's almost like
that's looking yourself in the mirror and saying, like, what are our chances even if we make the playoffs?
And I say all that, but we have to look at the history of what the Jacobs family does. They have a long history of holding on to guys probably longer than they should. And the coach is the first person that becomes the scapegoat. Don Sweeney's been the GM for
10 years,
11 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Chiarelli left in
2015 was Don Sweeney's first draft.
I was gonna say,
and that's the one I remember when he could have come out of that draft with Matthew Barzal and didn't.
Yeah.
And he had 3 consecutive opportunities to do it.
They wanted to trade up for Noah Hannafin. Carolina wouldn't do it, and then they were caught with their thing in their hand because they didn't have a backup plan.
Yeah, they caught with their pants down and their Schmenzer are hanging out.
Tell us how you really feel.
I love Oreos. That's how I really feel. So
Oreos would slap right now.
I think I
haven't had an Oreo in back in my heyday.
It's like that scene from Step Brothers. It's like you haven't had a carb since 2004.
So I look like I haven't had a carb since 2004.
I don't know. I don't stare at your abs. someone else's job, but I digress.
You can call them abs, I guess.
You have to look at the reality of the situation and say, obviously you're within striking distance of a playoff spot. You're only 2 points behind Ottawa. But what's ahead of you, right? Like, even if you somehow miraculously get hot at the end of the year and you upset the likes of a Washington or a Florida, like, you still have to go through another juggernaut team. Like, this team right now is not on the cusp of a Stanley Cup, a Stanley Cup run.
No, the reality is, if you go into the playoffs, you back yourself into the playoffs, you're most likely going to be a one and done again, and then you're sitting middle of the pack.
Not only just one and done, you're probably going to get your ass kicked.
Like, you're going to get smoked, embarrassed, and then your draft pick's going to be out of the lottery, probably middle of the pack again, and then you're going to be just kind of where you've been for the past 10 years of Don Sweeney's existence, where you don't have a good draft pick, you're out of the lottery, you have a bloated, top loaded, roster in terms of salary cap and no depth, and it's like you're just going to continue to just keep running it back, where you got to clean house. I know the Jacobs, they always do this, and they don't like to pull the plug when they should. They tend to wait far too long. I don't know necessarily what led to Shirley's exit. I don't know if he was forced out, whatever. I forget now, but like, there just needs to be a change, and it needs to be Don Sweeney, and it needs to be Cam Neely. And I don't know if the Jacobses will do it, which is frustrating because it's not the coach. It's not always the roster. It is how this team is built and constructed and how they do business. And for far too long, we've been, a one and done team in the playoffs, a two and done team in the playoffs. And when we get to, the cup, we choke that away too. So there just needs to be a full revamp.
Yep.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. I would agree. If you get a fair market value offer, for Brad Marchand, say 2 weeks from now, you're 2 days out. 2 weeks from now, the trade deadline's 48 hours away. And if you're sitting there and you're 3, 4, 6 points out of a playoff spot, and somebody comes along and offers you a market value deal for Marchand, like, I don't know how, like, Sweeney would be a moron not to do that, unless ownership looks at him and says, you're fired if you trade away Brad Marchand. Like, it would take that for him, then, he'd have to come out and be like, it'd be like, yeah, like, we got offers, ownership made some decisions, and we decided to not do this. Short of that, not trading Brad Marchand, I think, would be a colossal mistake if you're getting a market value offer and you're not competing.
Yeah.
And
keep it simple.
Make it simple.
Keep it simple. Paging Jacob, Sweeney, and Cam Neely. Sell, unload,
sell,
reset.
Yeah,
and just kind of go ahead.
I was gonna say, and maybe you have to look Don Sweeney in the eye and be like, "Thanks, but we got to go in a different direction." I mean, Don Sweeney's been here, like you said. This is this would be the completion of his 10th year. They've made one Stanley Cup. They lost in pretty brutal fashion in Game 7, and then of course they set the record. Was it 2 years ago? They had the record, and then they blew a 3-1 lead in the first round to Florida, on their way to.
Man, that was tough.
Yeah, like that was rough. I know they didn't win it all. At least they made the Stanley Cup final, which I guess, there's a little bit of a silver lining there. It's like, okay, it's not like we lost to some chump team that got their teeth kicked in the second round. But in 10 years, we've been to one Stanley Cup, lost in 7, and, got embarrassed last year, 2 years ago in the first round. And then, last year it was, I forget. They won their first round matchup, but then they ended up losing to Florida again.
They lost to Florida. They beat Toronto, as they always do. But no, it's been to go on top of that. They've gotten themselves into cap hell year over year because they give out 5-year contracts to Matt Bolesky and David Backes and everyone else is over the hill. They trade second round picks for Lee Stepniak. They just make stupid decisions, and I say they. It's really Don Sweeney. Stupid decisions to put this team just in further, nothingness. And if I see one more person from Boston or Mass get signed by Don Sweeney to a 5-year deal, like you got to get rid of this. Bring the hometown kids in and just go get the best talent. Like, yeah, I'm happy that you have a hometown kid, and it's nice to see that everyone wants to play for their hometown team. But like, is it actually the best player? Is Matt are we getting
All right, Jack Eichel, you're
or,
not coming here.
Yeah, no, cool. I would take Jack Eichel. I'm not signing him just because he's from Boston. He's from he's from Charleston.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
It's cool, but it's like at some point, get the better player versus getting a hometown kid.
Zach's had some built-up Bruins takes that he wanted.
I haven't had some built. I've been saving.
All right, we're gonna bypass Patriots talk. We're gonna have plenty of Patriots talk in the coming months, anyways. All right, boys, let's finish this up with State Your Take, which ironically mine is going to be a Patriots one. Ben, if you go where I think you're going on this State Your Take, you're going to be incredibly wrong. So I don't want you to embarrass yourself. Zach, you can go first.
Yeah, so mine's going to be a Pats one too. I feel like for the most part, my State Your Takes have been like opinion based or like I don't know, like prediction based. So I'm just going to go with a straight up take. Kind of came from. I think it was Tom Curran mentioned something about potentially needing to trade Ramondre Stevenson in the offseason, would save cap space and trade him to a contender who can block better. It got me thinking just about Pats running backs in general. So State Your Take this year is James White is the best running back in Patriots history. Been a lot of them. A lot of them are kind of similar. I see Ben's face already. Yes, I'm counting Curtis Martin. Yes, I'm counting Sam Cunningham. You look at what he did and what he meant to the teams that he was on. The 2 rings he was on should have been 3.
He was fucking huge in the Atlanta
Super Bowl. He was Brady's check down guy. He was Brady's security blanket. He was Brady's whatever he was. We didn't really have a dominant running back until maybe LeGarrette Blount. And he was the guy to take over. He kind of took what Kevin Falk was and made it better somehow. Love James White.
Ben's brewing over there.
I can see Ben's little face in the corner there, not loving it. But yeah, that's my stance. Sticking to it. James White, running back.
All right. Ben, the floor is yours for your god awful take here that I already disagree with.
I will, just to touch on Zach's point. I forget that Curtis Martin only played in New England for 3 seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, he dominated in those 3 seasons. Running. It
was Corey Dillon too. Corey Dillon was very good here.
Dillon was good.
I mean, he was here for what, a year and a half?
He was here for 3 years too.
So mine is not sports related. I did tell Matt last week to prepare for a good old fashioned ass kicking.
No, there's no ass kicking. The public agrees with me. Like, what are you talking about?
So, I mean, to be fair, the public did elect Hillary Clinton in the 2016 general election, and she did not win because sometimes the public is wrong, as they are here.
There's no electoral college on Twitter.
No, that is correct. But in this case, the court of public opinion is off their rocker. No, so my stance, this was based on Matt posting a couple of polls. I don't know if they were connected or if they just came back to back, but it had to do with
yeah, they're connected. It was from a group chat that.
No, I meant I didn't know if it was like you had like one and then you replied to yourself with the other one.
Oh, no, two separate ones.
They are definitely connected. But one of the things I consider myself a semi-professional expert in is the quality of pizza that exists. No shade to be thrown at El Prez Dave Portnoy, the king of pizza. I do not hold a candle to him. But my stance is that the superior buffalo chicken pizza is red sauce and grilled chicken and fried chicken. For the first time in my life. Matt, you will appreciate this. I thought about you the other night, last night and Saturday.
Let's be real. You think about me way more than that.
It's fair. I would say between 4 and 6 days a week, the first person I talk to in the day is Matthew Couture. And that's only because my wife sleeps in a little bit later than I do. And usually something happens overnight that requires my attention. But no, for the first time in my life, I had pizza from a place where the default was buffalo sauce on the pizza. But no, I disagree wholeheartedly that white sauce on as the base for the pizza is not correct. I am a blue cheese over a ranch guy, and nobody that does a white sauce it's blue cheese, it's ranch, which is why to me it's the inferior choice.
Well, get fucking blue cheese on it.
The chicken to me doesn't make or
Most
break.
places will do a blue cheese.
Ben,
base
if
you
you watch draft night together, I'm bringing a good buffalo chicken pizza.
So if
All
you,
right.
I will prepare. I will do what that Red Sox fan did to another Red Sox fan, and I will throw pizza at you. No, I'm
No,
just
oh,
kidding.
you're trying. Yo, you're trying it. You're gonna
Oh,
try it, and you're gonna say,
I am not a I am an equal opportunity pizza eater. I will gleefully eat. But because blue cheese to me is superior than ranch, that is why I would prefer a standard cheese pizza with fried buffalo chicken tenders chopped up and put on it. Is my personal preference.
all right. Let me give the rebuttal here, and Zach, then you can give
Oh,
see what size.
and for the record, I will share my research with you. That every single person that I asked, save one, agreed with me, not with you.
Yeah, well, all your friends are idiots.
Um,
No, plain simple. A white sauce, whether I prefer blue cheese with it, but the ranch works well too.
you're already backtracking.
And then
just accept it.
no, I mean both of them qualify as a white sauce. And then not, and when I say shredded, I don't mean like shredded. I mean like chunks of not breaded chicken. You know what I mean?
Well, that's
right?
grilled chicken.
Yeah, but I don't think they actually cook it on the grill type of thing.
How else would I mean? Well, sure, it would either be like in a pan or on a grill, but it's not. It's not breaded,
whatever.
Not breaded.
Anyways, a non-breaded white sauce pizza, and like I said, I will be bringing you. I'll think of which place is my go-to for this, and I'll be bringing it to you. That's just a superior buffalo chicken pizza, plain and simple. When you think of buffalo chicken, do you think of red sauce? The answer is no. No one's like, hey, I want buffalo chicken. Either. You know what I really want with it? Red pizza sauce. No one says that. Like, no one says that. Like, at all. So like that's the easiest, simplest argument for it is no one wants red sauce with buffalo chicken. It's that simple.
It must be a Gen X thing or whatever you are.
As our president says, the common sense thing. Zach, where are you on this?
So the whole time I was going back and forth. My third option is the white sauce with chicken. Second, I think is Ben's. First, I think is Matt's. But it's close.
I'm fine with breaded chicken. Like if you like breaded chicken. Like that's
to me the chicken doesn't make how the chicken is prepared doesn't make or break it. To me, like the truly inferior option is the one that is like the base is just a slathering of Frank's Red Hot as your base sauce.
You can't do that. Yeah. You can't do that.
But like I know I did get one response that said as long as it was dripping in Frank's Red Hot, I don't want pizza sauce or white sauce. I want it lathered in buffalo sauce.
Yeah.
No.
No, I was firmly on what Matt's talking about until I had just red sauce, like a cheese pizza with fried chicken or buffalo tenders, whatever you want to call it, and it was surprisingly like this is pretty bomb.
It's not that
I think every time I get buffalo chicken pizza,
it's not that red sauce is bad with it.
No,
but like
every time I get buffalo chicken, I always get the buffalo sauce with grilled chicken, so it's my default. But that being said, like if I order a new pizza place and it comes with a cheese pizza with buff tenders on it, I'm like pretty good. There was the Cask and Flag, and I don't know if the one in Boston did it, but the one in Marshfield had for a while. They don't do it anymore, but they used to have the white sauce as a base, and it was like good, but it wasn't. It just felt like it was too much ranch or blue cheese, whatever they had.
Man, dude, there's this place right down the street from my parents' house that it used to be a convenience store, but he had a kitchen, and the guy made bomb food. But anyways, he passed away unexpectedly, and this new guy took over. And I went in there one day, and he's like, "You got to try my buffalo chicken pizza." And he's like this Middle Eastern guy that he was like transforming it into this like Middle Eastern food place.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'll give it a try for lunch. Like, sure. It was unfucking believable. Like, it was unreal. Like, literally for the next like 6 months, I got it like twice a month.
Nice.
Like,
Nice.
I'd just call in. I'd call in and I'd go, all right, I'll be down in 20 minutes. He goes, okay, see you then. It got so bad at that point. But,
Give a regular
I
chicken pizza.
yeah, it was a white sauce with like a shredded-ish like clumps of chicken. It was just really good. But
Nice.
all right, I'll finish us up tonight with the Patriots one, and it's relatively simple, but I'm gaining steam in my confidence here, so I'm ready to unleash it. And it's that Joe Milton will be traded to either the Seattle Seahawks, the New Orleans Saints, or the Las Vegas Raiders. One of the three, Joe Milton will be the quarterback for next year.
Do you think a player comes back with those or just picks?
I also take credit if he just gets traded in general, because I guess there's some other teams. I would say the most logical, like the most likely, is just a pick.
Just
whether it's like a third round, maybe fourth, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would be very open to like a player for player swap. For example, like a Michael Mayer. In Las Vegas, like get a player like him in return that can help the team already, and you're not just trying to hit on the draft pick that you use. Without looking at the Saints roster or Seattle's roster, trying to decipher options like that. I think he's, if you're looking at these quarterbacks in this draft, I think half the league doesn't even think Sanders is a first round talent. Never mind. We'll see what they think of Ward. They got Dart, but after those three, like if you're looking at Jalen Milroe, if you're a team and you say Jalen Milroe showed me nothing to prove that he's going to be a NFL level passer, or I can look at Joe Milton, who, like, yes, it's one game, yes, it's for his backups, but looked like damn good in that one game. I'm saying, like, I would probably rather, unbiasedly, I'd probably rather take a shot on Joe Milton than use like a second round pick on Jalen Milroe. Now if you're talking like Milroe's falling into the fourth and like stuff like that, whether it's like a Milroe for a fourth or in Milton for a third or something like that, then you can get into the conversation. But like after these top three, if I'm a team that misses out and you're like, for example, like the Saints or Seattle, where Seattle's sitting at 18, like what are they doing at QB next year? Geno's under contract, but it's like a shit ton of money and he's not the future. I would absolutely, you could bring Geno back and bring Milton back, bring Milton in, and you let him battle it out. You know what I mean? And maybe you take a shot in Milton, and it's worth taking a shot if you're a team like Seattle. You trade a third round pick for Milton and he ends up being like a starting worthy quarterback. That like transitions from Geno to Milton rather seamlessly. So, you guys see that happening?
Yeah, I could definitely see him being traded. I mean, I think the smoke's there. I think where there's smoke, there's usually fire. And I think, like you said, someone's going to get desperate. We talked about this last time I was on 2 weeks ago, I think.
Are they going to want to take a shot on like these old bums? Like if you're a team like I don't want to say the Jets because trading him to the Jets I don't like, but
no,
like if you're like Seattle
I would need number 7 overall if the Jets want Joe Milton.
Yeah,
fair enough.
I'll do that.
Yeah, I don't like trading them in division, but like if you're like, oh, like we can tread water with Kirk Cousins, or we can like tread water with Joe Flacco for a season, or like one of the Geno Smith, or stuff like that. Like I would much rather take the shot on a guy like Joe Milton, where I feel like he showed enough, even if it's one game and against backups, like he looked mighty impressive. So if his accuracy issues have improved and you feel that way, like it's not like he's like, this slow white dude that doesn't have a ton of upside. Like it's not like it's Mac Jones playing, like, you're talking about. We're talking about a guy with Milton that, like, if he hit his ceiling, like the upside is huge.
It's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. So,
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts, boys, before we finish up?
Nothing for me.
Let's see.
Any ball game?
Seeing how Alex Bregman did sign, maybe next time we talk, the Red Sox will decide who's going to play third base.
Yeah, what's the next 2 months to die on that we have?
That's very hopeful for the Red Sox this time next week. Or maybe they'll make one more. Maybe they'll trade away a player. That's what I'll go. They'll trade away a player from next time.
Cost us to Toronto for Vladdy.
Yeah. All right.
I
That
knew that
works.
in a
All right.
heartbeat.
Yeah. We will likely have a Red Sox guest next week that I just confirmed before the episode started. I'll reach out to you guys. We're going to confirm a date, but we will have very likely Christopher Smith from Mass Live joining us next week. So tune in for that. And like always, we're Raise the Banner. Take care.
See you next week.
See you, boys.